Dear respected Thay, dear beloved community, today is the 20th of October in the year 2024. And we are in our Rains Retreat in Plum Village. We're in the Loving Kindness Temple. This is our second Sunday of our Rains Retreat. This Rains Retreat, the monastic community, as well as our long-term friends who are here with us for the whole retreat, we have an opportunity to explore the teachings of our teacher from 2012-2013 with the theme Soulmate of the Buddha. And for those of us who just arrived for the week, welcome to our retreat. And you will also have an opportunity to listen to the direct teachings from our teacher on Wednesday. As a community, we are continuing to invest and cultivate our understanding of our spiritual practice, our understanding of the Buddha. And when we hear the word the Buddha, we may think of the Buddha as maybe a god or of somebody with supernatural power, or someone who is of the past as a historical future, as a historical person. But in our tradition, when we invoke the name of the Buddha, or we think of the Buddha, it is to establish a relationship not outside of us, but more of a relationship inside of us. Because the word Buddha is a title that Siddhartha received when he was fully enlightened. And Buddha means awakening. It means to wake up. And in our modern language, Buddha is also the energy of mindfulness. It is the seed of awareness that we all have inherited from our spiritual ancestor, our genetical ancestor. So to understand and to have a relationship to the Buddha, first and foremost, we learn to touch the seed of awakening inside of us. We have to be able to cultivate the capacity to be mindful of an action. Mindfulness is always mindfulness of something. As we have been practicing since our arrival, I think one of the foundational invitation that we have all received when we are in Plum Village is listening to the sound of the bell, listening to the breathing that is present. So in this cultivation of practice of listening to the sound of the bell, we are listening to the rhythm of our heartbeat. We are listening to our mind. We may recognize that our mind in the present moment is very busy. It may be a little bit chaotic. It may need time to settle. And to support our aspiration of grounding ourselves, we need a focal point, like a refuge, so that we can ease and guide the mind. And in our tradition, that is the in-breath, the out-breath. The practice of befriending our breath. So our breath is also our soulmate. As you are alive, this breath is always present with each and every one of us. So our practice here, we are developing a very foundational dimension for us, is this spiritual refuge that we can always come back to. And this seed of mindfulness, as we continue to explore it and cultivate it, it starts to become a light for us, a light to shine to our present moment, the state of our body in this present moment. We may be present, but our body may need time to arrive. Our body may need time to ease into the stillness. We've experienced noble silence since we've arrived in the retreat. And I'm sure for each and every one of us, noble silence is a very different experience. For some, the silence can be very scary even, because in the silence, we may hear a lot of noise, and that noise maybe is internal. Or we may be able to hear our agitation, our anxiety, our worries, our fear, our doubt. Yesterday, someone in my group of mentees, and when we were listening to each other's experience in sharing, they shared that that doubt is coming up very strongly. Like, I'm here, I'm in PV, and I have an intention, I have an aspiration, but this doubt today is very loud. And the notion that we have doubt, it can bring up the idea that we are not succeeding in the practice. We're not succeeding in being in a retreat. We're not succeeding in being present. And just like the practice of awareness of the breath, I invite the friend to hear and to smile to the doubt, and to say it is okay to have doubt. Because doubt probably was already there for a long time, but we've been so busy and we haven't been able to listen to ourselves and listen to doubts, not just in Plum Village, but maybe doubt in life. But now it's just manifesting because finally you're able to be here, to sit still, and to allow the silence for us to hear what hasn't been heard inside of us. And I also invited us that when doubt arises as a feeling, our practice is, instead of running away and being afraid of it, it is to see it, call it by its name. Hello, my doubt. I know you are here. And in this moment, I am here. If I have the capacity, I can be with you, I can breathe with you. I can start to look deeply into you. Where is this fear coming from? What triggered it today? Was it a conversation? Or was it a moment of being alone and not feeling grounded? And so doubt arises. And with the teachings of the Buddha and our teachers, we know that we have also a pathway of guiding our energies. So doubt, anxiety, fear, sadness, joy, excitement, they all come with a source of energy. And us as a practitioner, we have a choice. The first choice is to drown in that emotion and feeling. And there's many ways of drowning in those feelings. One is we go internal and we start criticizing ourselves. We go down a dark rabbit hole of all of the unwholesome stories that we've experienced, and we allow it to replay itself. Another hole, which I've also done, is I go online and I look at other people that are better than me. And at first, if maybe there's a little bit of a motivation to get me out, but then it also drags me away from the present moment. And as we know, in our times, there's ways of consuming, such as what we see, what we hear, or there's also a way of consuming. Sometimes there are those of us who, when these feelings arises, we give into it, and so we find an action to cover it up. And that may be a habit that we have generated and cultivated, that it has also become a kind of friend in our life, a habitual friend. And it may be also eating, or it may be extreme sports, a kind of feeling to release us in this moment. And in the practice of Zen, we have other invitations in these moments. So I shared with my mentees, I said, first of all, it's totally normal to have doubt. I'm here, and doubt comes up on a monthly basis. But what I've learned in my practice is not to be afraid of the doubt, and to see also the other connections, the other feelings that are related to doubt. And a part of it, for me at least, sometimes maybe it is linked to sadness. It is linked to fear of the future. And then in this moment, I have to also remember that presently, though, I do have the ability to recognize and to say, here is my good old friend of doubt. And here are the stories that are coming along with it. And you know what? Today, it's not your day. Today is my day, and you're going to practice with me. And yesterday, particularly at 4:30 after service meditation, we have this in-between moment between service and then exercise, sport time. There's a lot of times I crave for me time, I crave for alone time. But then when that time presents itself, I don't know what to do. How many of us have arrived there? Like, you have this time, and then you're like, what do I do with it? And then you go down this list, I can read, I can write, I can listen, I can do this, I can do that. And then 30 minutes passes. And for me, yesterday, very particularly, probably because it's linked to today, that I have to give a talk, that this particular doubt of like, dude, am I good enough? Like, it's really funny. It comes back every time before a Dharma talk. This friend of, are you good enough? This friend of like, what do you have to offer to the people? Can you really offer something that everyone can receive and put into their own breath, their own steps, their own way of being? And I was definitely accompanying those habitual thoughts now. And then, fortunately, there was a window, and I looked outside, and I saw the blue sky, and I saw the trees, and I remember my brothers and sisters have shared that many times what supports them is being in nature. And how many times have I also said this, but have I done it? So I was like, okay, Phapu, get out. Get up and get out. So it was a very simple act, but it took courage and it took effort to just push yourself out of that state of going into our feelings and our emotions. Because in that moment, I recognized that this wasn't a meditation. This was a reminiscing of suffering. And I wasn't looking at suffering for a way out. I was looking at suffering for a way into my own suffering, that I can self-pity myself. I can be sorry for myself. And yesterday, when I looked out, I was like, And it's been raining in the past few days very strongly. So we have a lot of leaves that have fallen from the oak forest around the monk's residence. So it was a very simple action. I got out and I saw a broom. And I just started sweeping. And in that moment, in that gesture of sweeping, I just practiced letting go of the story, and I was able to just be so present with the action of sweeping. And I grounded myself in the present moment of just sweeping and having the sensation of joy in being able to remove leaf from the veranda. And as I was doing this, I was so aware that this is meditation. This is meditation beyond the cushion. This was in the moment I recognize, and I'm able to put into motion a practice of grounding. And after finishing sweeping, I took a step back. Yeah, that feels good. And I looked at the veranda, and I looked at the courtyard where I swept, and I felt, this is enough. This is enough. And the veranda is very long, so I only swept for 2 rooms. In the other 2 rooms, I hope that they will see that this side is clean, so they will be inspired to sweep the other side. But what was really happening was that in that moment, I was also becoming very judgmental. I was like, oh, my brothers, it's so simple. We all live together. We want a clean deck, but nobody's doing the work. Here I am, the abbot, having to do this even for them. So I was getting very judgmental with room A and B. And so that's why when I felt like, you know what, if I'm going to do more, then I'm going to hold this. I'm going to hold this particular resentment for a few days. And when I see them, I will try to give them a hint. Did you see the dad? So my intuition of practice of community life is knowing when is enough. So for me, I only did half of it. And by then, I was able to touch the wonders in the present moment. And this is not the neglecting of doubt and suffering and pain, but it's also our responsibility, each and every one of us as practitioners, to be able to generate these moments of peace inside of us, this moment of being. You're not being in the thoughts, in the doubt, but you're being in this moment. And that is why in our tradition of mindfulness practice, we have to cultivate the insight that daily activities, very mundane, very simple, can be ways of grounding ourselves and ways of pulling ourselves out of our stories, out of our creativity of the mind, and to have actions that are very concrete, that allows us to be reminded that these actions, whether it is sweeping, whether it is walking, whether it is making a cup of tea, and so on, they all have the ability of realigning ourselves to the present moment. Because in this present moment, in this action, with awareness and intention, there is a healing that is happening that we may not be recognizing. And this healing is the healing that in this present moment, we are training ourselves to have the ability to take care of suffering, to take care of pain, to take care of doubt. Because in that moment, I was able to touch joy. I was able to touch the joy of life. And that joy of life, do not think that it is outside of pain and suffering. That joy of life gives us data, gives us information that we have the ability to have joy. In our Upper Hamlet lay community, in the first being, I was able to hear one of our aspiration is to be able to touch joy, be able to cultivate joy. And we may think of joy as something that's very exciting or something that is more special. But for me, what I've been able to see in the fruit of practice is the joy of recognizing, the joy of simplicity of actions to help us be free from a past emotion and feeling that arises in the present. So in our practice, we're always reminded of the awareness of interbeing, of happiness and suffering, peace and violence, kindness and hatred. We may think that we have to, in our idea of meditation, in our idea of transformation, we have to be able to unlock, like untangle the knot of these mental formations or these experiences. And maybe it is also very important for us to see and to take in the responsibility of generating also the pleasant emotions and the pleasant feelings that are also inside of us, these mental formations, like peace, like ease, like stillness. Just recognizing that you're giving yourself permission to be here, to listen. You may be doing this deep listening, not just for yourself, but also for all of your loved ones who don't have this opportunity. So when we are cultivating this ability of creating our spiritual foundation in order to bring up the awareness that I can bring joy and I can bring peace to my present moment. Now that is a superpower. And this is something that I was able to see and to witness in the times I was with our teacher, Thay. That every moment is an opportunity for us to choose how to be. When suffering arises, we have a choice, either to accompany it and drown with it, or we have a choice to guide it into the present moment, and teach it that it has the ability to be happy. It has the right to be mindful of this moment. It has the right to heal, and it has the right to have a new experience. And this present moment key that we receive from our ancestral teachers, it gives us this opportunity of building a new past. Each and every one of us have stories. We all have experiences that have molded and shaped us who we are today. Some of it pleasant, some of it very unpleasant. And a lot of the times we can carry that past and that story throughout our whole life into the moment we return back to the earth. But with this practice of awakening, it is to wake up to this present moment. And it's to wake up to tell us that in this moment, we are also creating a new past. Tomorrow, we will look at today. And so we're painting something in this present moment. So do we have the ability to use these paintbrushes, these ingredients, these ink, so that we can bring them into a new way of being, a new way of listening, of sitting, of sweeping, of cooking. So all of these moments become a new opportunity for us. So every retreat, especially our rains retreat, what is very supportive is the consistency of the community schedule, the consistency of who we see, and the consistency of just having the space to be in. And we can also be carried away by our intentions and aspirations. And I shared this to my group of friends yesterday, mentees, because we can also be entrapped to it, because we have this ideal of 3 months rains retreat. And we carry that ideal every day. And if we don't also let go of that, we can't touch what is really happening now. So I said, it is okay to have doubt, and it's okay to be reminded of our aspiration and intention of why we are here. But don't hold on to it so tightly that it doesn't allow you to be present in this moment. So I also share this to a lot of us who are practicing for the full 90 days with us. Because the 90 day is really an opportunity of being in practice, being in community, being in nature, being in with ourselves. And that aspiration and that intention was very helpful. It was really needed. It was the fuel that got us here. And in Zen, there's also a saying, we also learn to let that be also. Let it have its organic process of maturing, because you have to let it grow in the soil of the practice, or you continue to hold on to just an idea of what this experience should be, instead of what this experience is. So that was just a point that was very alive for me from last night to this morning, that I wanted to take the opportunity to share with the wider community. Let us listen to a sound of the bell together and enjoy our breathing. I've been given a theme by the teaching body to focus on, so I need to get to that now. And that theme is a very close theme to me. It is the theme of a spiritual friend. When I ordained, I was given the name Phap, and that means friend, a Dharma friend, or friend in the Dharma. And when I received it, I remember one day Thay seeing me on the path in one of the Hamlets, and he said, "Learn to be everyone's friend." And I think personally I'm an easygoing person, so when Thay said that, I said, "Done, easy." I can learn to be people's friend. If I don't know them, I can just offer them a smile. But as life goes on, humans, we are so complex. And I have seen my heart also shrinking and losing its capacity sometimes to embrace and to be and to support. And because that's also linked to my own experience in what I am going through. So I remember very clearly when Thay said that, and he gave me that mission to be everyone's friend. I was quite a happy person. So the inner world projected the outer world as got it, easy, done. But as our internal experience starts to change, our capacity outside also changes. And the word spiritual friendship in Sanskrit, it is, please don't hate me, for those of us who are more fluent. Kayana Mitra. Is that correct, Siko Chung Đức? In Vietnamese, it's called, Thay translated, or it is translated as Thiên Hữu Tri Thức. And when we read Master Guisheng is another patriarch in our Zen tradition that have left a passage for young monks and nuns, for monastic, as encouragement of being not lazy in the practice and not taking for granted our youth. It's a very interesting text, and it's a very strong text from a Zen teacher. And in the text, it says that our parents have given us life, but on the path, it is our spiritual friends that help us grow. So even though our parents have given us the conditions to be here, to be as who we are, but on the path of our journey, the closest people that can be the greatest support are maybe not our genetic relatives, but it is friends that we meet on this path. And particularly here in the Dharma and in the spiritual world, we speak about a spiritual friendship. And a spiritual friendship is so important in our tradition because our teacher Thay, he has emphasized on numerous times when he teaches to the monks and nuns that for Thay, the greatest gift you can offer me is your siblinghood, is your ability to expand your heart, to learn to live with one another. Even though we come from different backgrounds, we come from different upbringing, from different social classes, from different ethnicity, different understanding, different worldviews even. But we've all abandoned the desire for a position, a desire for a career, a desire for fame outside, a desire for wealth outside. And we've abandoned that in order to fully commit ourselves to the path of practice. And this year I'm speaking to the monastic community. And in the monastic path, we will meet our moments of challenges. We will meet a difficulty, and sometimes our own capacity of seeing it and going through it is not enough. And that is when we need to also learn to take refuge in the Sangha. We take refuge in the siblinghood, the friendship that we cultivate. And friendship is not something that is given. There is a cultivation of it. You have to develop it, and you have to grow it. I have lost friends on this path. I have lost great mentors on this path. When I first ordained, One of the reasons why I became a monk, because they were so cool. In whatever like part of my thinking of superheroes, I'm just like, dude, they are cool. They're not bad. Like, I want to be a part of that, whatever that is. You know, in my first years in the summer retreat, every Dharma talk, I would fall asleep. But I was always awake when the monks and nuns would come up for chanting. And it was just like this image of a group of bald and brown coming up together and seeing them as one body, seeing them as together and just singing, just offering a chant. That really left an impression in me. And so when we join into this community, one of our first tasks as a Sangha member is to learn to expand our heart and our acceptance. Because we're gonna meet each and everyone's habits. And when we meet each and everyone's habit, that is an opportunity for practice. I have been in rooms, so I'm sharing this for our 90-day retreatants also. I have been shared rooms with 12 people. From you have the super silent one, to the party type, to the super snorer, to the OCD friend over here. And everyone has our idea of what is a perfect room. And one of our practice is learning to harmonize all of this. It's like, okay, let's create some general rules here. So here's the tea area. This is communal space. So if there's a chocolate bar on this table, you all can eat it. But if the chocolate bar is on my shelf, please don't eat it yet. I haven't practiced letting go. I still see that as mine. Very simple. I'm sharing this as something that I've experienced anger with. Not me particularly, but one of my roommates. And I've also experienced being with my brothers, where in principle, when we are angry, we take care of our anger. But I've had brothers who slammed their bam, and walk out. And the reality that we probably all have created our version of Plum Village, our version of the Brown family, where we all know how to practice. And though there was one day when the door was slammed, and I was just like, oh yeah, we're so human. I love this. So instead of putting the mind towards, which it did went to judgment, not gonna lie, but then I went, and we are human. And we're all doing our best. And his best in this moment, at least he left the room. And he didn't want to give more fuel to the fire that was present in the room. At least he knew, if I stay here any longer, it's not going to be pretty. And so he left. But I'll never forget that moment, because I had an ideal of my siblings. And in that moment, I said, as a spiritual friend that we're cultivating together, it is to also learn to accept our shortcomings and our weaknesses, and to see beyond that action also. And that brother had shame after that. He didn't come back into the room until 12 at night. We're also worried. But what was happening for that brother was dealing with his actions that he just did, which was slamming the door. And in that moment, the next day when we talked about it, to see also beyond the person's action. Yes, he slammed the door, but yes, he's also practicing and trying to transform his shame. And how can I practice? How can I be a support? Do I keep putting salt on the wound? Because he was my older brother. I could have chose to totally lose faith in him and not trust him anymore. But at least a part of me was, he's practicing. And how can I support? Inside of me, I'm expanding my acceptance. I'm expanding my capacity of embracing a community's, a member's action. And this has been a practice of really befriending this path, of committing to this path. And in the previous Dharma Talk, we heard from Thay. Those of us who didn't have the chance to listen, all of these talks we will also upload on our Plum Village channel so that we can follow it. But there was a sentence that Thay shared that really stuck with me. Because in his teachings of how to define and understand the Buddha's teaching, and he said that even if the teacher is not practicing well, do not give up on the Dharma. Even if what we see, we meet a practitioner, and we meet our friend, our brother, our sister, our sibling, and at one point, they suffer, and they go through something, and we may lose all of our confidence, and we may give up on the path. But isn't it also our responsibility to hold on to the foundation of practice, to be a reminder, and to be an example, and to be a nourishment for that person who may be going through difficulty. I had 2 mentors, like I shared, and 2 of these mentors were really my idols when I became a monk. And by year 1.5, one of them disrobed. I think that was my first heartbreak in my relationship with the community, because it was somebody who I held such high values, and I really, because I was a teenager, so I really had the mantra, I want to grow up to be like you. And when that person left, it was so heartbreaking, because I felt like he was my companion. He was my great support. And like when something is uprooted from the soil, like we're all like trees or plants, and all of our roots have connected and have met in the soil. But then when that plant is not there anymore, there's this pain, there's this hole, there's this emptiness that manifests and that arises. And in that moment, we also have to be reminded of the island within us. Excuse me. As a practitioner, each and every one of us have to know that we have an island within us, hải đảo tự thân, this island where we can take refuge in, this island of our spiritual dimension, our practice. And that island has to be a soulmate for us. And when I returned back to that island, I felt nothing was lost, even though that brother is not here anymore. And there's a part of him that is very alive in me. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have these practices that I've cultivated. So his loss, as I see it as a loss, but when looking deeply, it is not lost, because now it is a part of me. And how can I continue for him in me? So intellectually, I was able to bridge that. But on a practical level, I also grieved his loss. I also grieved and longed for his presence. And to also give permission to be sad. And for a very long time, I didn't give permission to be sad. Because I held on to this other ideal that a stable practitioner don't show emotion. And we can conquer our sadness. But as I continue to understand what friendship is, there's many layers of friendship. And there's a level of intimacy that also doesn't lose its connection. Our teacher has spoken on love. He has many teachings on love. And there is a very particular Dharma Talk where he speaks on love, and he speaks about the 3 levels of intimacy that we all maybe crave and long for. And the first intimacy, it is a physical intimacy. Physical. The second one is emotional. And the third one he speaks of, and that brings it to the spiritual dimension, is that there's also a spiritual intimacy. There's a spiritual cultivation in relations, in connections. And I really contemplated on this because as a monk, my practice is to also transform and befriend my desire, my sexual desire, my pleasure seeking, and to not see it as an enemy, to not see it as something to suppress, but to see it as a source of energy, a source of life. And what I've experienced and what I've come to understand, that these level of intimacy is also very alive in friendship. And I can share with you, I'm very nourished by these 3 levels of intimacy in the community. When we think of physical, we may think of a sexual relationship, or we may feel of a human physical intimacy, as in we have to hold each other, we have to conquer that person. Like that person has to be ours. And yes, maybe in a relationship outside where there's partner, there is that dimension. And normally we can see that the emotional and the physical are very linked together. But if we add a spiritual dimension, it adds more clarity and more practices of how to nurture a healthy relationship. And I can share from the monk's perspective that in our life as a spiritual seeker, we need companionship. Companionship, friendship, it is the whole path of our spiritual path. And this this line comes from a sutra that the Buddha shared to his attendant Ananda. And it's a very short sutra, and Ananda, his personal assistant, one day came up to the Buddha and said he really valued the friendship in the community. And he asked the Buddha, isn't friendship half of the holy path? Holy here means the spiritual path. And the Buddha said, no, it's not half. It is the whole path. The whole path is spiritual friendship, the cultivation. And what does that mean? We all have to explore that. But for my discovery, I can share very firmly when we speak of the physical intimacy in the monastic practice, we have a respect for each and every one of us, aspiration of giving up our worldly desires to adorn ourselves in the brown robe, in the Sangati, and shave our head as a commitment to be a monk, a nun. And when we love each other, we want to support that commitment. We want to support that path of freedom that that person have chosen. And when we fall in love, we learn to love not the craving that we are seeking. The intimacy that we are seeking will never be fulfilled even if we haven't transformed and feel wholeness inside. And the source of trying to take over another person is just our manas. Seeking our manas here is like one of the elements of our ego, running away from suffering and trying to pleasure seek and cover up a different feeling. But when we see and we expand our contemplation, if we love that person, what we love is we love their aspiration. And their physical presence is a flower in our garden of the community. And how can I, as a practitioner, as a friend, support that flower to continue to exist, continue to be? And one time Thay said, each and every one of us, to the monastics, we all belong in the garden of the Buddha. And none of you have the permission to take that flower and put in your own pocket. That flower is for all. It's for all being. And I can personally share that I feel so intimate with some of my siblings that I know that I am always willing to protect them physically. I know that I can be there in a heartbeat, as we say. And so this friendship, this companionship, I've experienced it as a very, not an ideal, but it is very real. And it has taken many, many years of cultivation and understanding. And this friendship can become like a soulmate for us. A soulmate that helps remind us and guides us on the path. And the Buddha has taught many sutras actually on friendship. And when the Buddha speaks of a spiritual friend, one of the elements of a spiritual friend, it is to water the right seeds in each other, to help shine the light where there is also blind spots, so that we can see when we are creating suffering. And a true friend would share that, bro, there's some habits, man, like, it's just not it. And I see you suffer, and I suffer as a friend with you too. And because I really love you, I share this from a space of love and trust. So it's to water the right seeds in each other and to help weed the garden together. And a spiritual friend is also to help us stay on the Eight Noble Path, the path of right view, right mindfulness, right concentration, right diligence, right livelihood, right speech, right action, right thinking. So friends are to also support one another on being on that path. And there is a practice of also generosity in friendship. Generosity in listening and being present, but also generosity in having space for each other. In a friendship, you can even consume a friend where that person just becomes a means for your consumption, a means for you to feel enough, to feel heard. Maybe at the beginning, if we can't listen to ourselves, we can have others that help listen to us, so we can learn to share and we can learn to verbalize our experience. But in friendship, in the line of the Dharma, we also have to be able to build our understanding of generosity of space for one another. And to see, am I just taking from the friendship? Or am I also offering to the friendship? And very naturally, when we become greedy in the friendship, and we only seek so that others listen to us, others hear us, others give us space, the limit of the other person will lose its capacity to embrace, to be there. And we may say, oh, but our Dhammas say we have to always be there for one another. Yes, and it is our responsibility of listening and knowing how to support the friendship so that it is sustainable. I have I've lost many friends on the spiritual path, like I've shared. And one of my biggest dip in the community, in my path, was when 4 of my close siblings, they all disrobed within the span of 2 years. And that was like a shock to my system. Because in my mind, in my ideal world, I build up this fantasy that we'll conquer the world together. We're gonna spread mindfulness together. And suddenly I was left all alone. And even though I was in the community of many brothers and sisters, but I still felt so lonely. And I felt so lost. And my mind was like, if they're giving up, maybe I should give up too. I'm very grateful to this one particular day. It was during our lunar calendar. We celebrate the Lunar New Year. And we come together, the monks would open our doors, the sisters would come in, the lay friends would come in, and we'll have informal tea together. And it's the only time in the year that the monastic residence is open to everyone. And it's very cozy. It's the equivalent of like Christmas or New Year's in the West. And this one of my younger sister, and she's actually here in Plum Village today. And I'll never forget that conversation. The first thing she said was she acknowledged that I have great loss. She said, I know you lost some of your closest friends. And I can't imagine how sad you are. In that moment, first of all, I felt so seen. And I thought I was hiding my feelings good enough. Well, my sister was able to share it so tenderly. And she said, well, and I hope that you would open your heart for new friends to come. In that moment, I felt that I have fallen into deep attachment with my homies. And I felt that without them, this is not my community anymore. And when that sister opened that door by just saying, and I hope you can open your heart for new friends to arise. That is to remind me that in this present moment, there are all of these wonders that are also present that can become new companions for you, new support and friendship for you. And that reawoken my aspiration of cultivating friendship. Because I did become quite narrow and quite individualistic. So that's a very good measure when you see yourself becoming very individualistic, like everything is me, me, and me. Then we start to see where it is in our cultivation of thinking that we are limiting the spiritual friendship to be present. So physically and emotionally, we learn to support one another. We learn to listen to one another. In this season, we have started, at least in the Upper Hamlet, we have started the practice of shining light. And shining light is a practice we do once a year. It's a very intimate practice. And you can only do it with a community that have lived together. And the way we do it in the Upper Hamlet is we would divide the brothers' community into two. And equally, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And every group has from the most senior to the youngest sibling. And each session, we would have a 360-degree Sangha eye on this person. And this person would first share to the community in the last year what they have seen themselves practice and grow in, where are some of their shortcomings that they still need to transform. and maybe an aspiration. And then they would ask the brothers to shine light for them. And then in the community, whoever has a point to share would bow in and offer the input. But before sharing, we have to meditate. There's a text that we read together, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. And the essence of it is that we see each other as one whole body. Shining light to one is shining light to many. So when I am shining light to you, I'm also shining light to me. And because I see you as part of my body, and I want that body piece to be healthy, therefore I want to give it the attention it needs. And we make a vow to share with loving speech. We make a vow to also the receiver to listen with an open heart. And this practice has evolved through the years in Plum Village. And with this intention, this practice is not a ground of criticism, but it's a ground of deep looking together to see that the areas where that friend can be nurtured and nourished. And majority of the time, we get to see how many flowers that person has in their way of being in the community. This becomes a great part of my great joy in the community, because there's so many brothers I don't have enough time to know. I don't have enough chances to work together with, to be with. So I also have a perception about them. But when I hear the other siblings shine the light, share of what they've seen, what they hear, what they've experienced with, I get to expand my mind, like, oh, wow. They also have all of these other abilities and capacity. Because a lot of times we stay in our perception about people. And that perception locks on every time we see that individual. So this practice has served, at least for me, in expanding my horizons in the Sangha members of the community. So these practices of cultivation in the Sangha life, you may see that it is very simple. It may be even a nuance, we say that? Something like that. So there's particular things that we do in the community that we may not think of it as of importance, but they are very core to our community building. And a part of that is the heart and the physical presence of service. So as a community, as members of our Sangha, we all have the aspiration to serve all beings. But on the community level, we also have to continue to expand our heart service to the community that we are in. And sometimes in our practice, we become a Dharma teacher, or we become a bhikshu, bhikshuni, and we may feel like we should be treated differently now. We shouldn't have to do this or that because that's too minor. We're the young ones. I've done my part. I've done my service for 5 years already. And this particular mindset, it becomes a lock. It locks us from connecting and from communication with the community. So when we think of service, I also see it as a way of communicating my love to everyone. It's not a duty, but it is a love. And it's my practice of practicing selflessness, my selfless nature to give to each and every one of you. And this service also becomes the language of love. So I'm going to speak a little bit more to the monastic community on this element, because when we are looking for communication and looking for ways of being, but if we don't give ourselves also to the community, as in forms of presence, of practice, of teaching, and then of being, of service with one another. And we expect all the love, we expect all of the admiration and all of the care. It doesn't, that ecosystem, there's no flow there. There's no flow there. And it becomes very one way, and we start to take for granted the relationship and the community we have. And in the mind, we start dividing, we start othering what is important, what is not important. But our continuous practice as our monastic body is to see the importance of every cell, of every organism in the body. And every organism is as important as every other. And I know that sometimes the roles are very important, like Dharma teacher, like elder brothers, elder sisters. But those are responsibilities for us to be reminded of how in our Zen tradition this transmission of monastichood have continued to now. It's this responsibility of transmitting, of being there, of listening, of showing up. And when Thay speaks about siblinghood for us, he speaks it not only in the tea and the playing and the joy together, but he speaks on it on all of the 4 pillars that he has given us. The pillars of practice, the pillar of study, of openness, the pillar of service, serving from the day-to-day responsibility to the responsibility of having to receive some tasks for the community that maybe we never signed up for. But it's not about that. It is about supporting the whole organism of the monastic body. And we may sometimes say, oh, I didn't sign up for that. I didn't become a monk to be an accountant. But there's a need. And you have that talent, you have that capacity, and you can serve. It's not about the role, but it's about the heart. And when you see that, then the body is very supported because all part of the organ is functioning. And so we have to continue to reflect in our spiritual family, as a monastic community, of how we can continue to encourage each other, to support each other in stepping up for the community, in taking on tasks that can be of a support for the community. Yes, we have to practice humility. Humility practice is very important. But we cannot use humility to avoid responsibility. We cannot use that humility card in order to give to others. If there is something that is out of our capacity, yes, we can share that, we can honor that. And the community will look within. But if it is also in our capacity, we also have to be ready to see it as a Dharma task, as a Dharma offering. And this is this era that we are in, where Thay has entrusted this legacy to each and every one of us. And we're not going to do it alone. And we all say this, we don't do it alone. But also, are we showing up to support so that that aloneness is not there? And a part of our friendship is we also learn to celebrate each other's contribution to the community. So every time we have jealousy come up, channel our mind to, that is a flower of the garden of the community. Wow. Thank you, dear brother, dear sister, for being an amazing translator for the community. Thank you for putting the hours into these Dharma talks that we get to hear from Thay and to see the direct translation. And when somebody offers something for the community, because it takes individual to be a community. So in the historical dimension, it can see like, oh, one person is succeeding in our community, where are the others? But our practice is to see that our offering is the offering of the community. And those of us, when we have that support and we have that unity of the community support, we feel very empowered. And we feel like we're not doing it alone. We feel like we're doing it with each and every one of us together. And this is what I'm practicing. And I practice whenever I see my siblings, some of them outgrow me better. And I'm like, yeah, that's my young ones. That's them stepping up. And I don't allow jealousy to take over. And the practice of when we offer something, when we've done something for the community, we also see it as a gift to the three jewels. We see it as a gift to everyone. And there's one story that I got to witness. It was a year that one of the book of our teachers just came out. And I was at the Hermitage, is where he lived. And that day, two sisters who works with the editorial team came with such joy. And they said, Thay, hot off the press, is his new book that just came out. And the first thing Thay did, he took that book and he went into his library. And in his library, he has an altar. And in that altar, there's a photo of his parents, his teacher, and many other teachers before him. And the first thing he did, he didn't say anything to us. He received it. And he went straight to the altar. And he put the book on the altar. And he prostrated 3 times. He touched the earth 3 times. And I was right behind him. So I was so curious. I'm like, where's he going? And Thay didn't say anything. And I just followed him in that practice. I also touched the earth with him. And in that moment, my mind was seeing that, wow, Thay is practicing selflessness. And he is seeing that this book, which has his name very big, Thich Nhat Hanh, is not him. It is thanks to all of the conditions that have come for this manifestation to be there. And when he was touching the earth, and I was prostrating together with him, I really felt like this line of ancestors celebrating in this moment. Because these ancestors didn't speak English. They couldn't have written this book in English. And here Thay, as a continuation, has done a new story, a new book to help bring into the world as another source of Dharma. In that moment I felt and I saw and I witnessed this selflessness and this practice of shifting from pride to gratitude right away. And after he prostrated and he saw I was right behind him, and he said, okay, let's go drink tea and celebrate. So this is also a very safe space of practice where we can learn to generate and to direct our, maybe sometimes, the joy and the happiness of success can be very strong. And it may water in the pride, in the ego. And the safe space I've seen is to share that merit, is to direct it to gratitude, to see that all of the conditions that have come to support this manifestation. Thank you, dear community. Let us listen to 3 sound of the bell together, enjoying our breathing, allowing ourselves to be alive, to feel the in-breath, to feel the out-breath, to be a companionship for our breath, to continue to commit our love and trust in the Dharma, in the Sangha, and in the Buddha, the awakened nature in every one of us.